Hey everybody, Jen from Abby's Attic here. It is day 5 of the quarantine, for our household anyway. We're here in San Antonio, Texas, but I was thinking, there are probably households that don't have all of the proper sewing equipment and tools that you might need, including a sewing machine. So I thought what I would do is do the same mask and the same pattern and the same format, but with some items that you may have around the house. I realize that not everybody has this fancy pants lace just, randomly hanging around your house. So I took some time and I did a little, zombie apocalypse thinking and thought, okay, what household items can we use to make these masks? So aside from fabric, which everybody has, you don't have to go to the fabric store to buy fabric. You have plenty of things lying around the house. The CDC says that any tight woven 100% cotton will suffice for these masks, and so you can take an old pair of jeans. That's pretty heavy duty. You don't have to make it double thickness either. You can just probably make it single thickness. You can use old bed sheets. Hopefully they're clean. You can use pajama pants that are flannel, also clean. Now, if you do make these masks and send them to hospitals, they will sanitize them. So washing the fabric ahead of time, if it's brand new fabric, is not a concern, nor is the worry of transmission of something that you might be carrying to the healthcare workers because of your contribution. They will sanitize these things as far as I understand. So let's get to it. First of all, you will need, oh, and by the way, in the links I will provide in the comments I'll provide a link to the pattern and the instructions for this mask. I'll also provide a link to the video that I showed earlier from a hospital that is showing people how to do this. But I'm adding a couple of little things, and they're things that they didn't talk about doing. Novice seamstresses may not know some of these tricks, and so I wanted to make sure we got these. If they're going to go out, if you guys are going to do your awesome Americanness and make these masks to distribute, we want to make sure that they're well made. So I'm going to show you a few things about that. So number one, you're going to need a ruler of some sort. Doesn't matter how fancy it is. Let me move these guys out of the way. You're going to need a piece of paper. Any old paper will do. You are going to need aluminum foil. You're going to need scissors. Any scissors will do. And if you don't have elastic hanging around, then you can always use the rubber bands that come off of large produce things like asparagus, broccoli, carrots, whatever. Turns out that while I can cut this, and at the moment it's only 6.5 inches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, almost 7 inches. We need a 7 to 8 inch elastic, so I'm just going to stretch this out a little bit. It's not going to take the elasticity out, it'll just give you a little more length to work with. I gave myself another 1/2 inch, so that worked good. It is shrinking a tiny bit, but that's okay. Okay, so let's get to it. So obviously not everybody's going to have pins that they can pin their fabrics with, but you can use a variety of other things that you may have hanging around the house, especially if you have little girls. I have these little hair doodads that my girls have outgrown, so we can use that to clip your fabrics together. You can use paper clips. Here's another little hair doodad. These are quilter's clips, but you can also use binder clips. Those big black sturdy things with the big metal, I wish I had one here, the big metal handles. Here's another little hair doodad. Perfectly useful. Here is another hair barrette, also useful. And then I have a little craft clothespin and then a safety pin. If you go to the dry cleaners a lot, you should probably have a ton of these hanging around. And if you're a quilter, I know you've got some hanging around. So the last time I posted the train wreck of the video that I made a couple days ago, I did have a couple of comments inquiring about hand sewing. What if I don't have a sewing machine? Perfectly fine, we can do this by hand. So I'm going to show you how to do this by hand. You will need a needle, you will need thread. You're going to need more thread than just this, obviously, because it's not going to take us all the way around, but it's just to start. Also, I want to show you that I have drawn, here's a second set here. I've drawn a stitching line around all 4 sides of my fabric, and I'm leaving an opening right here so that I can turn this guy right side out, okay? You do not have to draw this line on your fabric. It just helps me to show you where I'm going. This happens to be about a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, which is also the distance between the edge of your presser foot and your needle, okay? So if you just run your fabric right next to the presser foot like so, that'll give you about 3/8 of an inch. If you don't have a sewing machine and you're going to be doing this by hand, the seam allowance is going to be the same. So if you're new to sewing, you may want to go ahead and draw yourself some straight lines so that you can follow them. Lastly, I want you to put a mark right here in the center of this edge, because that is where this eventually is going to go, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Okay, so let's talk about this. So once again, we're going to start by hand sewing, and you're going to start on the outside. Okay, we're going to do a back stitch. So the back stitch means that you are stitching kind of backward, right? So I've started about a centimeter away from my edge of my line, and I went back to it. Now I'm going to go back to it again. Then I'm going to go a centimeter away, and I'm going to go back to it. And then a centimeter away, and back to it. So the idea is that as long as your stitches are straight, you should be just fine. It is better to make smaller stitch lengths. Mine are kind of chunky. I wouldn't recommend doing this to assemble this mask, or to assemble clothes for that matter. You may want to do about half that length. So I'm going to demonstrate that real quick. About half of that length, and back down. Also notice that my needle is inserting right in the previous stitch, so that your stitches connect and that there's very little space between stitches. Okay, now once you've got that sewn a little bit, we're going to peel this guy open, and we're going to talk about the elastic. Now again, you can use rubber bands, regular elastic. I'm going to put my elastic about 3/8 of an inch away from the edge here. I'm going to cover that up. Actually, no, I'm not. I'm going to clip that right there so that I can go around here and put this one about 3/8 of an inch from the edge. Notice that I'm trying very hard not to twist my elastic. Okay. So now we've got this secure, and I'm going to continue sewing. It is oak season right now, so that is the reason for my clearing my throat. I apologize. Okay, when you get to the elastic, couple things. This is something that they don't mention in the videos that I've seen so far. Not to fault them at all, but I just want to point it out. If you want to make your mask very secure, here's a couple things to remember. Number one, make sure that you can see a little bit of your elastic poking out between the two layers of your fabric. If you do not see that elastic, there is a very good chance that it has slipped past where you need to be sewing, and then by the time you flip your project right side out, you'll discover that the elastic is no longer attached, and you'll have to flip it back over and do it again. So it's better to lose just a little bit of length on your elastic than it is to go back and find that you have royally missed it altogether, and you'll have to go back and sew it again. When you are hand sewing through your elastic, and that's where I'm at right now, you want to make sure that you get a few good stitches. You're going to double stitch this, okay, because you want that elastic to stay put. If the elastic pops out, even one edge of it, it's not usable anymore. So make sure that you securely sew the elastic to the mask, all right? I'm going to go ahead and knot this off because I'm short on my thread. All right, I'm going to cut that loose. Put that in a pin cushion because that's always where those need to go. Okay, So that would be the hand sewing aspect. Now, if I didn't quite sew that for long enough, fear not, you can always look on YouTube and look up backstitching on YouTube, hand backstitching. Backstitching by machine is an entirely different beast, and so that's not what we're going to look up. All right, so I'm going to use this guy now to do my machine sewing because it's going to be quicker. I've already secured my elastic pieces in here, and so this guy's pretty much ready to rock and roll. And I've already marked my 3/8 inch seam allowance here, so I will go ahead and get started. Stand by. Remember, we want to leave an opening here so that we can turn it right side out. And always, 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 always remove your pins, safety pins, paper clips, hair doodads out of your way before you sew over them. All right, let's do this. Oops. All right, so now we are done with our sewing, and what we need to do next is trim the corners of your project. Why do we do that? Well, once this thing is turned right side out, all of these seam allowances are going to be inside your project, which is fine. But when you eventually fold them in, which is the way they will be, if you don't cut the bulk off, then you'll have a lot of fatness right there in your corner, and that kind of defeats the purpose of having pivoted at that corner in the first place. So we trim the corners, and you always do that. Whenever you are sewing and you have a corner to deal with, you always trim it. All right, we got that done. Now we're going to flip this guy right side out. And I'm going to use my super expensive handy dandy tool to poke my corners out. That would be a pencil, because you know this is zombie apocalypse times, guys. Whatever you can find. Rubber bands from asparagus and kids' hair clips, whatever it takes, you guys. We're in this together. No need to go shopping. There's always something around the house that can help you out. Okay. Now before we close this baby up, because we do need to close this opening, we are going to create a little channel right in the middle, and you can kind of see my mark right there for the center of my mask. This is where the mask is going to fit over someone's nose, okay? If you don't use a marker that you can see right through, you can always find the center by folding it in half, giving a little finger press, and there's my center mark. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and paper clip that. Now, you're going to take a piece of foil, about that wide. Okay. You're going to fold it in half. Now, it's not perfect, and that is okay, you guys. Just fold it in half, and in half, and in half, and in half. Also doesn't have to be perfect, all right? Just needs to be foldy. I'm going to fold this in thirds now, because I think if I did it in half again, it still would be too big. So I'm going to fold that in thirds. There we go. So that's going to fit right in there. We need to center that though, so let's go ahead and fold it in half. Find the center of this baby. Oopsies. Gravity. All right. So that would be the center of my nose piece. So I'm going to tuck this in here, I can feel the groove, and that groove is going to go right in the center of my 9-inch edge here. And I'm going to pin it down. Okay. I'm also going to make sure that that is jammed completely into the seam. We don't want it slipping out at all. And you can kind of see where it's at. So I'm going to pin that right there so it doesn't get away from me. I'm going to pin this one on the other side so it doesn't get away from me. And now I'm going to take it to the machine and sew a channel right across here, back stitching on both ends, and then I'm going to sew 2 little sort of bumpers right here to prevent the foil from sliding around in the casing. So stand by for that. Okay, so now I find the end of my foil. There it is right there. And the other end, oops, it slid a little bit, so I'm going to fix it. There it is right there. And I'm going to sew a couple of stitches here and a couple of stitches here just to save the foil from slipping in and out. So stand by for that. So as you can see, I have sewn a channel right under where my foil piece is going to be. And then I've sewn 2 little end stitches here so that the foil doesn't slide in and out of that casing, okay? But the nice thing is you can bend that foil to contour around your nose, and it'll give you a little bit of closeness to the face, which, you know, may or may not prevent everything, but it will certainly make things more comfortable, and that's where we're at. So next thing we're going to do is go ahead and pleat this. The pleating makes it easier to, makes it more secure on the face on the sides, but it also expands so that you can secure it over your nose and mouth. This one is already finished and it actually has the foil in it. And so you can see how it sort of keeps its shape, so that'll be nice. All right, so we're going to do the pleating and the top stitching to secure everything all in one go. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and pin this part here because I know it's going to get away from me if I don't. And your pleats should be about, let's see, what did this one come out to? Looks like from end to fold is exactly 1 inch. So what that means is I'm going to take my mask and I'm going to put it right up against one of these lines. 1 inch away is right there. So that means I'm going to have a pleat right there. And the pleat itself, the tuck, is only going to be about 1/2 inch, maybe a little bit less. Let me see what that is. Oh, it's like 1 centimeter, which is about 1/2 inch. Let's try this way. Yeah, just a little shy of 1/2 inch, maybe 3/8 of an inch. So your pleat should, the fold should be 1 inch away from the edge and about 1 centimeter deep. And I'm going to go ahead and pin that. And then I'm going to do it again. So let's see. 1 inch should be about right there. 1 centimeter deep. And notice that these tucks are starting to touch one another here. Yeah, so it'll be a lot flatter. They'll fit together like little pieces of the puzzle. And it'll be comfortable to wear. And it'll look really nice too. All right, once again. 1 inch. 1/2 inch pleat. Now if you don't get these exactly perfect, it's okay, you guys. The idea of the pleat is to just make sure that it compresses the edge, condenses it rather, so that it sits snugly across your face, but also expands to give you that coverage over the nose and mouth, right? So, okay, that looks all right. So 1 inch from that means the pleat is going to start here and go 1/2 inch back. By the way, the pleats should be on the outside and they should be facing down. So if this is your nose piece, the pleats should be facing down away from the nose. All right. Obviously, if you flip it over, there will be pleats on the back, but they will be facing up. So pleats going down on the outside. One more. Here we go. Not perfect, but hey, it's all right. You know what else is all right? Not using thread that matches. Totally okay, you guys. It's still going to keep your project together. So it's okay if you don't have a matching thread. I am going to start in a corner. I don't normally do this, but I think it'll be okay. All right, always backstitch when you sew. When you start and when you finish, not when you pivot. All right, now as I get to the pleats, you will see when you sew yours, you'll see that it's going to be a little tricky getting over the pleats. Okay, and so the way to fix that is to do a couple of things. Number one, make sure your needle is down. Notice that my presser foot, the toes are kind of pointing up a little bit. That means that the presser foot is not pushing the fabric down evenly on the feed dogs, which means I probably can't advance. Check it out. See, I can't, my fabric's not advancing. So to fix that, you take a piece of fabric and you just fold it in half a couple times. You're going to use this as your booster seat to keep the presser foot flat and even, parallel to the ground. And let's see if this works. Ah, how about that? Now I'm going to go ahead and backstitch over the pleats, and I'm going to backstitch over my elastic just to be sure, because there's no point in making this if it falls apart. Hopefully not, but you know, we're expecting these masks to get quite a lot of use, and so we want them to stay together. So every time I come to a pleat, I'm going to backstitch over it just to secure it. And then also backstitch over the elastic just to secure that. All right, second side. I don't have to top stitch over the nose part because we've already created a channel here and it's got a seam, so it's not going to come apart. So again, I'm going to start on the corner. Backstitch over the elastic. So now that we're finished sewing, we've got all of our components together, I'm just going to go ahead and clip all these little rogue strings that are hanging out, these threads, because I'm sure that whoever wears this will be bothered by all these little threads on their face. I know I would. So we're going to cut those off. Plus it makes your project look nice. All right. Not too bad. Okay. Now the final little step to make this look really nice is to take an iron and press it. All right, everybody, here we are, freshly pressed. I'll hold it up so you guys can see how crisp those pleats are. Notice that not everything is perfect. That is okay, you guys. As long as it's sturdy. Yeah, it looks sturdy to me and it's well made. Then you have a mask that you can wear with confidence and, you know, go crazy with the colors. Have fun with it. So thanks for watching, you guys. Be safe, wash your hands, practice that social distancing, and hopefully very soon we'll all be past this and we'll be able to say, remember when. So may your families be safe and have a great day. See you soon.